Stream is up. Twitter is up. And we are...
The WagerTalk and Sports Memo November Thank You Special is a deal you guys cannot pass up. Get every college football and NFL play in the month of November for just $1.99. That includes 5 NFL Sundays and 4 college football Saturdays. Sign up now and you get the rest of October for free. That means 5 full weekends of football for under $40 per weekend, 5 weekends for less than the price of a 5% play per week. Just go to your favorite WagerTalk or Sports Memo Cappers homepage to lock in this offer before the games kick off this weekend.
Happy Monday, guys. Welcome back to WagerTalk TV. This is the KBO, Korean Baseball Organization Playoff Preview Show. My name is Andrew McInnis, joined by Dave Cokin. It kind of feels like deja vu, Dave. We were doing this show several months ago. There were no other major sports going on. We finished out the KBO show. We got going with the MLB season. You and I did a first pitch together. And here we are, Dave, back at it.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out. Things started, I would look, there was nothing going on in the spring except horse racing, which I was having some fun with on a daily basis, playing tracks like Will Rogers and Fauner Park and some of the tracks that I'd literally never heard of. So KBO is going to be having games on ESPN. It's like, it's interesting. I think I'll take a look at this. And decided, well, you know what? I'm going to start delving into this league a little bit and see if I can come up with some edges. It turned out to be a good decision. KBO has been pretty good for me. I know it's been outstanding for you. And here we are in the playoffs, and the league's getting, I think, its fair share of attention from people who never heard of it before this year.
And it shows how long this season is, Dave, even with just 10 teams in the league. Obviously, the MLB went through with their very shortened season, and the playoffs pretty much just getting started here in the KBO. A very unique playoff format, which we will get into. But I want to remind everybody watching this show right now, it is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. Dave, I believe you said you didn't have anything up as far as $9 Monday goes. For myself, I have a best bet in the Giants and Buccaneers game. That also includes a bunch of prop wagers as well. But one package we definitely do not want you guys to miss out on and want you to be a part of. We want you guys in on these Korean baseball plays, but don't buy our picks every single day. Grab the 2-for-1 special. This is a package that you do not want to miss out on. Originally $339. You can get Dave and I together for $178. That's every single Korean baseball release from both Dave Cokin and myself, Andrew McInnis, for $178. You can find that at Dave's profile page, wt.buzz/DC, and mine, wt.buzz/AM, and get all of our plays. I'm off to a 1-0 start to the Korean baseball playoffs with a crazy winner this morning in the LG Twins game. Dave and I will get into that, but the success has been great. Dave and I did a show Monday through Friday during the extreme pause in major sports, but a quick record that I want to get across that I was on, plus 55% return on investment, 70 and 44, 61% since July 13th has been my record. And Dave, I'll throw it back to you. I mean, in our comment section on YouTube, how many questions did we get from people saying, are you guys going to continue to do this? Are you going to keep doing it? And the answer was yes. Dozens of times that we gave them, it's proven to be a success.
Well, there was no reason to stop because we were both doing pretty well with it. And, if you're having success with something, you may as well keep doing it. And I did not play the opening game of the playoffs. You managed to sneak that one home. It was a really exciting game, but definitely looking to get involved now as we move to the next round.
Let's talk this playoff format, as it's very different than many other sports, Dave, and I'll get you to break it down for us, if you will. 5 teams make the playoffs, but a very interesting note here with the number 1 seed not playing a game for what, Dave? Several weeks?
Well, I think it's till November 17th, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a long time off, and the first thing that goes through people's minds is, well, boy, I mean, that team might be really rusty if they're not playing. That sounds good in theory, But the fact is that winning that top seed has been a really good thing. I believe it's 4 of the last 5 and 6 of the last 8 first-place teams, number 1 seeds, have gone on to win the Korean Championship. So, you get to rest everybody. You might show a little rust, but more likely you're just going to be really nice and fresh, and you're going to be battling a team that's had to go through a lot tougher sequence to get there. The way it works, the 4 and 5 teams play what is a best-of-3 series, but the team that finished 4th is ahead 1-0 before the series even starts. So what we saw last night was Kiwoom and LG, or this morning is the more proper terminology. LG already had a 1-0 lead, even though they hadn't played yet, which meant if they won this morning, that was it. Series is over. They win 2-0, even though they played only 1 game. And LG did manage to pull out a 13-inning, come from behind 4-3 victory. Kiwoom scored a run in the top of the 13th. LG got 2 to walk it off in the bottom of the 13th. So LG moves on, and they now play a best-of-5 against the. I've got my notes mixed up here. They play the first 2 games, then they play game 3 on Saturday. The number 3 seed is. This really sounds amateur. Sorry, guys. I got a little mixed up with my notes. Kiwoom and LG are out. Doosan is the number 3 seed, and Doosan moved into the number 3 seed on the last day of the season because they won, and both Kiwoom and LG lost. So that was a very fortuitous win for the Doosan Bears. The number 2 is the KT Wiz. Now, they won't play until the winner of the 3 versus 4 series is complete, and they'll take on the winner of that. So the KT Wiz, who were tremendous in the second half of the season, this was not a team that looked like they were going to even make the playoffs in the first half of the season. They're now sitting in the number 2 slot with time to rest in. They've got the best player in the league in Rojas, he's going to be a cinch MVP in the league. And then after all that, the NC Dinos, who've been number 1 from start to finish in this league, will be number 1 in the final series as well. And that's the format. It's a lot different from the way we format the playoffs here, but it's pretty interesting.
It is very different, Dave, and I thought the exact same thing that you mentioned was the rust factor for that number 1 team. The playoffs start November 1st, and that team has not played their first playoff game until November 17th. It's very interesting, and I'm sure you and I will touch on that with the championship preview as well. We're going to get into the preview, though, of the LG Twins and the Doosan Bears game, but just to touch on the league in general, like Dave said, because there's only 10 teams, guys, because there's 5 teams that make the playoffs, there's been so much of an adjustment up and down with the standings. This Doosan Bears team was in second place for a large part of the season, with the NC Dinos holding that number 1 spot for a very, very long time. Dave and I noticed certain betting trends, whether it's a side or a total, away or home, with these teams, but the KT Wiz slipping into that second spot. And for myself, as far as the plays go with my clients, it was interesting picking those situational angles. And Dave, I'm not really familiar and sure about your volume towards the end of the season, but over the past couple of days of the season, I kind of shut it down. But some situational opportunities really presented themselves with teams that really wanted to get to a certain spot in the standings and teams that were kind of stuck in a certain spot in the standings. But I find it very interesting. You've got the LG Twins, their record 79-61, 4 draws. Doosan Bears 79-61. Wait for it, 4 draws as well. So although this LG Twins team had to go through that wild card, so to speak, game in miraculous fashion with a 13th inning victory, these 2 teams meeting hold the same record now, and it should be quite a bit of an interesting series here. So like you said, we'll start things off with this series. This takes place Wednesday morning at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So quick little programming note here, and more so just a package note. When you see a package up from either Dave or myself in the Korean baseball, these games are early in the morning, especially if you're on the left coast. And for myself here on the East Coast, 5:30 a.m. Eastern time, way earlier if you're on the West Coast. So Dave, we got the Doosan Bears, LG Twins. I'm going to ask you this to start here. Obviously, it's just 1 game. And obviously the Doosan Bears managed to get that spot they are in the 3 seed. However, when we approach this, is it any type of disadvantage or advantage for the LG Twins that they've been playing some more meaningful baseball recently?
No, I don't. Well, I think both teams were playing meaningful games at the end of the season because they were jockeying for position. LG is an interesting team. They in the minds of many, were maybe the team to beat going into this season, with a good-looking roster, solid. Really, not a lot of big stars, but just a solid-looking team. And they started off that way, and then hit a pretty big skid, which was very much injury-induced. I mean, they were at one time. I think they were missing 4 of their 9 regular position players, and I'm not talking for a game. They were out. They were on the injured list, and they went through some tough times at that point. They managed to get everybody back and played pretty well down the stretch. The number 1 guy on the team in terms of getting attention is Roberto Ramos, former Rockies farmhand, who's hit a lot of home runs wherever he's gone, and that includes the KBO, where despite the fact that he missed, I believe he missed 27 games, he had 38 home runs. Ramos is interesting in that the consensus seems to be that somebody's going to offer him a contract. I'm not so sure he'll get a guaranteed contract, which is probably what it might take for him to come back stateside. Part of the reason for that is that some of the flaws that were in Ramos's game when he was here are still in existence there. I mean, he struck out in over 27.5% strikeout rate, which is really high, especially in a league where there's not much velocity. I think that's a bit of a red flag. He can't field, he can't run. He is strictly a power hitter, and I'm not sure that anybody in the States is going to offer him a guaranteed contract, in that he's more likely a DH. So could very well be Ramos is going to be back in this league again next year. The best player on the team is probably Hyun-Soo Kim, the left fielder. He's been around for quite some time. He's just a really good ball player. But LG doesn't have anybody that I look at as being a real major league prospect. Doosan, on the other hand, we'll talk about their main prospect in just a moment, because he figures very much into the Game 1 mix. And, Andrew, I think you'd agree that in a short series like this, getting that Game 1 is really critical, and that's where Alcantara comes in.
Absolutely. You know, right in front of me right now, I have the top pitchers by earned run average in the league, and Alcantara has been just purely dominant, Dave. No matter what the odds were, no matter what the number was, no matter what the matchup of the opponent was, it just seemed like he was on a whole nother level versus his opponent. And I think, you know, you and I have really, really talked about this during our shows way back then, but there's a real big drop-off from that number 1 guy versus that number 3 or 4 guy. And I think in the major leagues, everybody knows who the number 1 pitcher is, the ace is, but it's a big, big difference in the Korean baseball organization. And you and I touched on this as well, especially when we did our interview with the Korean baseball reporter, the fact that they expect these guys to stick around in the game a lot longer, Dave. And Alcantara, you know, he's pitching 7-8 innings, you know, on average. He's lasting very long. And Casey Kelly, a guy for the LG Twins, a guy that's also stepped up his game and gotten it going and shown some confidence late in the season. And of course, we could talk about recent form. You know, certain pitchers that got it together late in the season. When you look at a guy like Alcantara, 2.54 ERA, 1.03 WHIP, 198 2/3 innings pitched. I mean, this guy, the stats are through the roof with him. The biggest thing with him, he makes life difficult for the batter. I mean, even if he's not throwing heat, he is really making these guys, work the count. And I think that we talked about the 3-step approach, especially in this Korean baseball league, Dave. He makes it very difficult for them. And I think including him and Chris Flexen for the Doosan Bears, those are 2 guys that are going to make life really difficult for the LG Twins. And we can talk about the star-studded, you know, players that can really go out there for Doosan, because let's be honest, Dave, we saw some high-scoring games contained in the Doosan Bears where the LG Twins, they showed signs of that, but they also proved that a lot of times the wins they're going to gather are going to be the 3-2, 4-2 style of games. And I think that with the superior pitching and some of these guys that can really go deep, it might be a tough time here for the LG Twins.
Yeah, I agree. I think for LG, the whole idea is you got to find a way to get one of these first 2 games. And at that point, they might have an advantage in Game 3 because the Doosan pitching drops off after Alcantara and Flexen. Yu is not nearly at that level. And Kelly would be available for Game 3 on Saturday. He'd be on his normal rest for Saturday. So, if the Twins can find a way to grab one of these first 2 games, they're in good position at that point. The problem is I don't know how they're going to do that because I think that the pitching edge is clearly on the side of the Bears with Alcantara and then Flexen in the first 2 games. And to be honest, I think they've got the better lineup as well. Look, Jose Miguel Fernandez didn't have a great second half, but he's still a really quality player in this league. Jaewon Kim has had a fantastic year. O's a really good player, the first baseman. They've got a good deal of power and I think a deeper lineup. And what I did was I matched up the top 10 offensive players in WAR, wins above replacement, for each team. And there's a pretty good sized edge on the Doosan side. So you add in the pitching edge, and it's clear to me who's supposed to be favored in this series. That's the good news. The bad news is the odds makers have the same information. We don't have any lineup for Game 1 or the series, but I am anticipating a very big price in Game 1. Despite the fact that this is Game 1 and it's a 4 versus 3, I think you're going to see Alcantara in the range of $2 here. Anything less than that, to me, you might actually have some value on the Bears. But if you're looking for a bargain price on Doosan, I don't think you're going to get one in Game 1. We won't find out probably till tomorrow what the numbers are for Game 1, but that's going to be the key to whether I'm playing this game or how I'm playing this game, because there are other avenues if the price is too high as far as the money line's concerned.
You talk about the batting advantage as well. Looking at the top 20 batters in the whole KBO day, 4 of them in that category, the top 20, represent the Doosan Bears team. Just 1 in the LG Twins. Like I said, I think this team, like you said, is going to have to steal one of the first 2, but they're going to rely on those, those quality pitchers and those key moments to strike, because I don't think if it's a high-scoring contest, that benefits this LG Twins team. Obviously, we talked about the pitching. I got to ask you, Dave, is there any type of, total approach you'd look at or numbers you're looking for as far as an under or an over to look at here in the first 2 games?
No, not really. I think we already saw in the matchup that took place this morning that the odds makers did a quick adjustment for the fact that this is a playoff game. The total on the game actually came all the way down to as low as 7 in some spots. It opened 8, 7.5, and actually some 7 at the close. So the market was low to begin with because you didn't see 8s. I don't know if there were 5 games all season in KBO where there was an 8 hung in the regular season. But it's different in the playoffs because the starters are expected to go deeper. You're not going to get the weak arms in the back of the bullpens. They're just not going to be involved unless a game goes real long, like we saw this morning. And that's a bit of a fluke. So the totals are going to be lower. And the one thing for LG in terms of strategy is I think they've got to find a way to extend the pitch counts on the Doosan starters. Now, that might not matter with Alcantara because he goes really deep into games. Flexen doesn't, though. And if they can get him out of there by the 5th inning, then you've got a chance to take advantage of what is not one of the real good bullpens, even by KBO standards. And there's some weak bullpens in this league. But Doosan's problem all season long was the fact that their bullpen was not very reliable. So the goal for the Twins is to get into that bullpen.
Once again, guys, that special is $178 to get both Dave Cokin and myself, Andrew McInnis, every single KBO release. It's the entire month of November of this Korean baseball playoffs. Originally $339. That's $178 at either Dave Cokin's capper page or myself, Andrew McInnis' capper page, to get the combined KBO release. As well, we'll have our plays up during the afternoons or early in the day as far as the daily pick packages for the league. And Dave, I think I had a blast. It was a great time, especially during the lockdown. Looking forward to researching and creating some notes and giving out plays and discussing it with you several months ago. And we had some fun rants on this show. Wouldn't you agree? We had some good laughs. And I think one thing that you touched on that I wanted to make sure to ask you about this show was the first 5 in the full game. Look, not every single book offers that, but I believe the attention, like you said at the start of the show, off the tip, has pretty much really been a little more exposed, I'd say. You know, looking around, a lot of different shops, a lot of different books are offering the KBO. As far as the bullpens go, as far as first five action goes, as far as isolating pitchers goes, how do you plan on doing that with your clients, and how do you plan on releasing as far as first five full game goes?
I'm probably going to just go strictly full game because the fact is there's still a lot of books that don't offer first five. I played a ton of first fives because most of my handicapping was starting pitcher oriented, and I did not want any part of the bullpens in the regular season for good reason too, because they were just completely unpredictable. But in the playoffs, first of all, you got to do what everybody can get. I don't want to put out plays for everybody buying the packages that they can't get. There's nothing more aggravating than seeing a selection and you can't bet it. And then should I play the full game instead? So I'm going to focus on the full game. And I think it's a little different because you are only going to get, obviously if a game goes 13 innings, there's not much you can do about it. But in most games, you're only going to get the stronger bullpen guys pitching now. They're not going to go real deep on the roster, and you're not going to get these guys who do nothing but walk people, which is a big issue in this league. The bullpen depth in KBO is really bad. But the first couple of guys in the bullpen for most of the teams are okay. So I think this is where you get to 9 innings and just leave it at that.
Well, that does it for us here on the KBO Playoff Preview Betting Show. It's the Doosan Bears. It's the LG Twins. The LG Twins won their wildcard game. They have moved on. They're taking on the Bears. The Bears were patiently waiting for them. They earned their spot to do so. That game starts Wednesday, early morning, 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Guys, a reminder, it is $9 Monday, both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. Also a November special, a November thank you for all of our customers there, and our KBO special, 2-for-1, Dave Cokin and myself, 178, originally 339. Dave Cokin, thank you very much for your time. Best of luck with your plays, and I'll see you guys for the next playoff preview betting show right here on Wager Talk TV.